This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined the Patreon or become a YouTube member. Thank you. If you could, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Cavs-focused content. Hey, look, I got to give Bill Simmons some credit because nobody has been early on some of the key players in Cleveland quite like Bill Simmons. Now, where Bill Simmons did kind of steer wrong was he got a bit into the Donovan Mitchell speculation and read too much into what was eventually proven to be a nothing burger. But he does have some interesting comments about this year's Cavs team, and I want to react to him, so let's jump into it.
I'm 100% in on the Cavs being real. I don't think there's any fluky at all. From the first, second, third game, you could see it. There's like a charitableness now with Mitchell and Garland.
Yeah.
I don't think Mitchell cares if he doesn't have the ball in the last minute anymore. I felt like he did last year. And I think Garland did a little bit too.
That's a good point he brings up about what the difference is this year between those two, right? When Donovan Mitchell first got here, there was a lot of energy to say this is Donovan's team. But when Donovan had got here, Darius also just got his extension. I believe it was a max extension. And it was clear before Donovan got traded here that this was Darius' team. And Darius is the point guard. So that was a little awkward the first year between Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. At some point, they kind of figured it out, but it never felt like it was in rhythm. It always felt like there was a struggle, a tug of war over who gets the basketball, who's hot, who's not. And then somebody submits, and then finally whoever is the guy at the end of the game ends up being the guy. There wasn't a lot of chemistry there. Last year, both these dudes were hurt at different points of the season. So you got a section of the season where Donovan Mitchell's looking like point guard out there, and he's distributing the ball, and he's doing all of this. Darius Garland, once he got back, was probably expecting to be Darius Garland, but he lost 20 pounds. His jumper was off. He just wasn't as good as a player last year because of all the injuries that he had to deal with. And I bet that led to a lot of frustration, right? Darius Garland looking at, I'm having a down year. This just like sharing the backcourt with Colin. Like, I bet there was a lot of introspection in the offseason with Darius Garland about, is this working or not? And then you go back to that first year, like they kind of figured it out a little bit. It just felt like they needed more time. That second year felt like there was a legitimate rift. They bring up all the reports that came out that Darius Garland was not going to come back to the team if Donovan Mitchell did, and all of this stuff. And maybe that had something to do with JB not doing a good job of figuring that out. But then you fast forward to this season, and I think the biggest tell on how much better this is that we're not even thinking about it, right? Like every other year I've done Cavs videos when Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell been on the team together. It's always been a question. Who's going to close the game? Who's the leader of this team? Whose team is this? Is it Darius's or is it Donovan's team? Same thing last year, where the answer seemed obviously that it's Donovan's team. And I think part of this is because Darius Garland kind of realizes, okay, this is Donovan's team. He is the dude, right? He's that guy. That's okay. He's going to be here for a while. I'm the number 2. That does not mean I'm any less of a player, but that's just where I am. And now, since they're not fighting over who's the guy, whose team is this, at the end of the game, it flows, right? There's no tug of war in that fourth quarter anymore to see who's going to be the dude taking the most shots in the fourth quarter. Sometimes Darius takes all the shots. Sometimes it's Donovan Mitchell. They have a good feel for it, right? There was a portion of this season where Darius Garland was the closer. Everybody was tweeting, Darius Garland is the closer. What? Oh, my God. Is that going to be what the Cavs do for the rest of the year? And then you fast forward to recently, and it looks like Donovan Mitchell is the closer. The answer is they're both the closer. And because they've gotten better playing together, they have chemistry, they have a better feel for where each other is at mentally and where each other is at when it comes to their ability to perform in that fourth quarter of that game. Donovan has a good feel of like, hey, Darius is going to pop open behind me. Let me make sure I look for him a little bit extra. Let me get him some shots, right? Or if you're Darius and you know it's not dropping for you, you have no problem getting that off to Donovan Mitchell. It's together. They're working together, right? And that's a hard place to get to. Even LeBron and Kyrie, when they were in Cleveland, struggled to get to that point, right? Because when LeBron first got here, it was the same tug of war. Who gonna be the dude? Then you get to 2016, and these guys get a lot of time together, and all of a sudden it goes back and forth until the end of the Kyrie era in like 2017, where Kyrie had bigger plans for his career. So I say all that to say, this has been a positive development in the evolution of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, not just as basketball players, but as men. And I think that's awesome. Let's continue with the clip here.
I feel like they've sorted out something.
It's crazy how these things flip, because there was all this smoke around Donovan Mitchell for years that he was not long for Cleveland.
Yeah.
He ends up doing his extension. Shams puts out that report that Garland's representation might
forgot about that. Yeah.
If Mitchell's still on the team because he feels like he's not being optimized. They bring in Kenny Atkinson. And
all right. So another thing I want to bring up was all the reporting and speculation around Donovan Mitchell. And like, I want to be charitable enough to think that the people who were doing this weren't making stuff up, but maybe they got pulled in to something that's bigger than just them. A man named Kofi on this channel, Kofi, he does some of the secret-based channels for SB Nation. He made a video talking about how the NBA media has changed, and it's a great video. You should go watch it. And in one part in that video, he mentions like, hey, NBA media changed from actually covering the games to reporting news and rumors. And the reason the game changed is because more people click on news and rumors. More people can generate news and rumors because you could just make shit up, right? It's real easy to make up a trade, a mock trade of will Donovan Mitchell go to this team or that team. And I think that beast that the NBA has created, because I don't think they have done a good job of marketing their brands, right? Their individual teams. Like if you look at why the NFL is where the NFL is and why the NBA has struggled to keep pace and is now losing viewership, I think it's because the NBA decided that they're going to focus all of this on individuals because they had that success with LeBron and they had that success with Jordan and they had that success with Larry Bird, and they had that success with Magic Johnson. But sports teams, in my opinion, are a very profitable endeavor when you focus a lot on the individual teams too, right? Like one of the things the NFL does that I think is great is that they do a good job of making sure every team gets a national TV game. Like, yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys, they get a lot of national games, but there's a limit to how many national TV games each franchise could get, and there's a minimum to how many national TV games each franchise can get. So everybody feels like, hey, if we start winning games, we're going to get the big TV spots because that's how the NFL works. The NBA, sometimes, you'll have the Cavs and let's say the Minnesota Timberwolves, let's imagine those are two best teams in the NBA. Well, they're not going to be treated like that. They're still going to put more emphasis on the legacy brands and the big players. Like, if the Cavs and the Memphis Grizzlies had the two best teams in the NBA and they were playing in some kind of big game, it would not get the same amount of coverage as if LeBron James was going up against Dylan Brooks again or something like that, even though that Dylan Brooks is not even the same caliber of player as LeBron James, because they're so used to moving this thing around people. Now, this brings me all the way back to Donovan Mitchell, right? Now, I was going to work it around, right? But I'm taking it a long way so we can understand the process that creates the problem, not just that the problem exists. And how that pulls in Donovan Mitchell is that everybody looks at Donovan Mitchell. They go, he's a big name player. They say to themselves, and they make jokes about the fact that he's only played in Utah and Cleveland. And they go, oh, he must want to play in a bigger city. Look, he's from upstate New York. He must want to play for the New York Knicks or the Boston Celtics or the Brooklyn Nets. Meanwhile, if you're paying attention, that never made sense. I remember making this point 2 years ago when people were worried about losing him to the New York Knicks. The Knicks had already signed Jalen Brunson to an extension. Why in the world would they go after Donovan Mitchell? That doesn't make sense from a team building standpoint. People were like, oh, well, he'll go to Brooklyn. Why? His situation in Cleveland's so much better than Brooklyn. At no point did Donovan Mitchell demonstrate during any of this that he really had a giant preference over where he played basketball, given that he played at Utah for like 7 years and never requested a trade. But somehow everybody bought into the idea that Donovan Mitchell was going to leave for a bigger city, not because they thought that was going to happen, not because the basketball told them that that could happen, not because there were any tea leaves that made them think that that could happen that were real, but only because it could happen. You feel me? Like, just the possibility of Donovan Mitchell being able to leave potentially for a bigger city team was enough for people to act like it was going to happen and write articles about it was going to happen and make videos about how it's going to happen, because that's how NBA media works. And that's what brings in the views in NBA media. Not actually reporting and going off of what you feel like is going to happen based off the actual tea leaves that are there, but just getting excited about something because it could happen. How many players have we heard, oh, they're going to go to the Lakers? Because it could happen, right? Kyrie could get traded to the Lakers. Doesn't mean it's likely, but the mere fact that it could happen makes everybody talk about it like it's going to happen. And I think that's precisely what happened with Donovan Mitchell and what the problem is with NBA media. Shout out to Kofi, because he really did a great job breaking this down. I'm just applying what he said more specifically to Donovan Mitchell. And I think he even talks about that in his video. So go check his video out. He does great stuff, man.
Man, everything sort of flips and everybody has this level of buy-in. It's just so crazy how things can turn on a dime in this league. They've bought in and they look so much better for it.
It's crazy what a good coach can do for you too, right? A coach that knows how to put these pieces in place. It's crazy what it does for you. And it's not like the Cavs went from a trash coach to a good coach. They went from a decent coach to a really, really good one. And it's made a world of difference. But we've seen this before, right? Like, Michael Jordan didn't win his rings until he got with the right coach. Same thing with Kobe, right? So, you know, I think when it comes to what you run on the floor, sometimes coaches can be a little bit overrated in the NBA. But when it comes to getting that part of it right, the people part of it right, getting those 12 guys to be the best version of themselves for a whole season or multiple seasons back to back, that's where coaching starts to change stuff, right? That's why Steve Kerr makes what he makes. Greg Popovich makes what he makes. Eric Spoelstra makes what he makes because he has a real good grasp on that stuff. He's not going to draw up the craziest plays that you've ever seen, but when it comes to managing the egos of an NBA locker room, he does a good job of that. And I think that's also something that Kenny Atkinson has exhibited in this run, because again, the Cavs are doing some stuff differently schematically, but really what Kenny Atkinson has figured out is like how to make sure that all these dudes get along and feel great about playing with each other. And that has made a world of difference.